Hello and welcome to Bytesize Newscast number 10. Today's episode is maybe a little special because I found a ton of small bits of news that I just wanted to share with you guys because they were cool, and I thought about just throwing them all into one episode. So here we go on today's quickfire newscast. China's at it again, people. Super soldiers. Here we go. Then we'll have a look at Argentina's millionaire tax as Argentina takes a unique approach to tackling the COVID crisis. The real question is this a one-off measure or are they just going to carry on with this? We'll also have a look at asteroid mining as Japan returns the second ever asteroid sample back to Earth. Now, do you remember Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank? Well, he was recently on the Pomp podcast and he had some interesting things to say about Bitcoin. So we'll analyze what he said and put it all into context. And finally, are long-term Bitcoin holders finally cashing out? Could this explain the recent price behavior? We'll answer these questions and many more. Also remember that the following is not financial advice, it's strictly educational. And if you like the content or have any questions about it, just leave a comment down below, and also don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This way you'll stay up to date on the most important economic developments as they happen in the crypto and wider economic space. So let's jump right in. We talked about this on previous newscasts. China would be in the news again for something just out of this world. And I guess we didn't have to wait long. According to this article, it looks like China is actually working on biologically enhanced super soldiers. Now, it's mere speculation at this point, but you know what? Let me quote this. While the potential leveraging of CRISPR to increase human capabilities on the future battlefield remains only a hypothetical possibility at this present, there are indications that Chinese military researchers are starting to explore its potential. Now, we know for a fact that Chinese are not shy about using this type of technology, right? And apparently they're not shy about using this type of technology to gain a military edge either. Obviously, at this stage, we don't have any idea what the long-term consequences are of genetic manipulation. Are we going to get super soldier babies, for example? But the fact that the Chinese are willing to use this technology as a means to gain superiority is something definitely worth keeping an eye on. Now, the next topic is on the millionaire tax being introduced in Argentina. Now, what this basically comes down to is the richest 42,000 people in Argentina will have to pay up to 3.5% on wealth in Argentina and up to 5.2%, 5.25% even on wealth outside of Argentina in a progressive tax rate. Now, I have serious mixed feelings about this because, on the one hand, the richest 42,000 people in Argentina won't go bankrupt by paying 5.25%. It's not a crazy amount, right? But what worries me is the fact that these kinds of temporary measures are often permanent measures. We've seen this time and time again where something that is meant as a temporary thing, like a toll road, turns out to be a permanent toll road. Now, if this measure is not returned to its previous state, what we'll probably see is these wealthy 42,000 people move their money, or maybe even themselves, elsewhere. They'll leave Argentina. Now, what this leads to is a kind of wealth drain, if you will. It'll lead to an Argentinian wealth drain, which is the exact opposite of what countries like Monaco have, where they have people queuing up to move there because Monaco offers such advantageous tax perimeters, aka you barely have to pay any tax if you live there. So in sum, it's a great measure by Argentina, but only time will tell if the Argentinian government sees this as a one-off measure or not. And if they don't, there might be some serious, long-term consequences. Now, the next topic is kind of cool. It's on Japan returning an asteroid sample back to Earth. Now, I want to point out a couple of things here. First, this is only the second time contents of an asteroid have actually been returned to Earth. Now, this is significant because a lot of people have been touting the coming of asteroid mining. But by the looks of it, this technology is still a light years away, pun intended. Now, seriously though, we're so far away from doing this regularly and profitably that just in case you feel like investing your money in these asteroid mining companies, I seriously advise against it. Now, unless you are investing for your grandchildren, of course, things like this are just not attractive. The second thing I want to point out is that it's extremely difficult to travel to and back from an asteroid. This has to do with the fact that these are, traveling objects. They move fast. This means that the interval at which these asteroid contents come back from Earth is very infrequent. And this is, evident from the fact that the next sample to return to Earth isn't going to be here till 2023. Anyways, I know I'm being critical of asteroid mining, but it doesn't take away anything from the fact that this is a tremendous effort scientifically. So hats off to the Chinese for making this happen, and I hope we get to see more of this stuff in future. Now, the next topic has been catching some headlines recently, and that's because in California, water futures begin to trade amid fear of scarcity. Now, this is pretty scary if you read something like water joined gold and other commodities traded on Wall Street, highlighting worries that the life-sustaining natural resource may become scarce across the world, right? Well, this is just a case of clickbait because water futures are simply a way for large water users like farmers and other large water users to know what kind of price they get of water in the future. Now, see, in California, the price of water has been fluctuating really heavily because of forest fires. And these farmers are just trying to protect themselves against these wild fluctuations in price. And that's why futures have been called into life. So I'm sorry for, if you got scared reading this headline, but it's really just a mechanism to make sure that farmers can keep producing crops at a stable price range. Now, the next topic is on someone you might know from Shark Tank. His name is Kevin O'Leary, and the show Shark Tank was about entrepreneurs looking for investments for successful investors, right? People would go to the show and present their idea, and they would get investments or not. Now, and this guy, Kevin Leary, also known as Mr. Wonderful, was recently on Pomp's podcast to talk about the economy, entrepreneurial investments, and of course, crypto. Now, what Mr. Wonderful said was that he was clear on Bitcoin, you know, and he was a skeptic not so long ago, touting the usual, it's like it's too volatile to invest in and it's worthless as a currency as reasons why not to invest. Recently, however, he kind of changed his mind, and I'll quote him on this one. So this is him saying, when I can get this thing regulated, this thing meaning Bitcoin, so that I can put millions of dollars into it, and I know that I'm not off the side in any way, I'm not breaching anything, and it will be stable. And he later said, if that was the case, if tomorrow morning we woke up and the SEC said that you can create an ETF with Bitcoin and we think Bitcoin is legitimate, payment system and store of wealth, not only would it go up, but you'd have a lot of people like me investing in it. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Kevin will have his ETF in 2021. Now, I really like reading about what some of the establishment, especially people who are more negative on Bitcoin, have to say on the matter. And especially I'd like to hear what, it takes for them to be involved. And that's why I wanted to share this little bit of news with you guys. Now, the last bit of today's rapid fire news is some news on Bitcoin. And the following article is on whether or not Bitcoin's long-term holders are cashing out at this moment in time. Now, let me be specific. Previously, I covered the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges and concluded there was a historically low amount of Bitcoin on exchanges. This means that the amount of Bitcoin available for selling is lower, which is a good sign for the price of Bitcoin. Now, this report, however, gives us more context on what's happening to Bitcoin specifically. Now, the first being that 10% of the entire Bitcoin supply moved at a price above 18K. This could be for a number of reasons, people who want to buy, sell, store, spend, whatever. But regardless of their aim, it is notable that the amount of Bitcoin moving as the price reached 18K is significant. Now, what should be said is that the price above 18K is it's been the longest period above 18K historically. So that's also something to take into consideration. Now, on top of that, Glassnode also recently stated that long-term investors who had held for at least 155 days have started selling their Bitcoins as the asset has doubled in value in the last 2 months. So what we have here are two indicators: more movement and a doubling in the selling of persons who've held their Bitcoin for a longer period of time. Now, both the selling and the movement appear to be bearish for Bitcoin. This is logical and to be expected. See, in my opinion, this is psychological. At the end of the day, for most people, Bitcoin is about making money by investing in an asset that is uncorrelated to other assets. It's a way of generating alpha, is what they say. And when you have this mindset, and when we get to this new all-time high, thoughts begin to creep into your head. Thoughts of selling, especially because perhaps last time when it reached this price, Bitcoin plummeted down and you missed that selling opportunity. Now, what I imagine is that most people who had missed this initial sell opportunity, they're looking for the right price to do so again. And this is their second opportunity. And you know what? I think it makes sense. It's a kind of, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice metaphor, And interestingly, it also helps us make sense of why Bitcoin has been struggling at 20K. It's simply because a lot of people decided for themselves that Bitcoin reached an all-time high, they would sell. If missed it once, shame on me, I'm going to put in a sell order at the next all-time high. Now, what I predict is that this phase will pass, especially as those who wanted to get out are getting out and those who want to get in are looking for a good time to get back in. Now, what I predict is the price of Bitcoin and other crypto will drop from here. So if you're looking for an entry point, perhaps staying patient is the way forward. Now, if you're looking for a sale moment, you probably missed a high point for a good few weeks, maybe even months. So stay patient. Whether you're buying or selling, your time will come. So what have we learned today? Another China headline. This time it's not deep sea diving or moon landings, but super soldiers. The term may be overstated, but it's without question that Chinese scientists are aiming at using CRISPR in order to improve their soldiers' performance. Now, we also had a look at Argentina's millionaire tax. This will be 3.5% on internal and 5.25% on external wealth. The question is this a one-off measure? If not, Argentina could be dealing with some sizable money drain as the rich seek to escape Argentina for tax havens like Monaco. Now, Japan returns an asteroid to Earth. Given that this is only the second time this has happened, and the next asteroid isn't due till 2023, it really puts into context how far asteroid mining is in the future. In other words, asteroid miners and their investors, just be wary. We also had a look at California's water futures. Is this a Mad Max scenario? And the short answer is no. Water supply has fluctuated severely in recent years, and this has led to a demand in stable water price from large water buyers. This in turn prompted the CME to instate water futures. We also had a look at what mainstream and Shark Tank investor Kevin O'Leary had to say on Bitcoin. From this, we concluded that when a Bitcoin ETF comes around, which will happen, we can safely assume that big-time investors such as Mr. Wonderful will look to get some Bitcoin exposure. Now, finally, we had a good look at the selling behavior of long-term Bitcoin investors. Without a doubt, the all-time high has been unnerving for many. And my conclusion is that the psychological element of being a near all-time high has increased selling behavior amongst those who had missed the previous all-time high. This, in my opinion, is just a phase, but it does mean that we'll see some lower prices for Bitcoin in the near future. So that's it for Newscast number 10, guys. Thanks so much for listening. I really hope you enjoy the content. Please subscribe, leave a comment down below, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.